We stay in Cape Town. The annual and traditional Cape Town Carnival Parade will now be held on the 17th of January. The parade, which traditionally takes place on the 2nd of January, known as Tweede Nuwe Jaar in the Cape, was twice cancelled, first for religious reasons, they say, and again then because of logistical problems. The Cape Town Cultural and Carnival Committee met twice with the Minstrel Committee. Finally, yesterday, both parties moved beyond the blame game to come up with a new date. The carnival has also become a bitter political battle between the African National Congress and the Democratic Alliance, with even the economic freedom fighters having their say on the matter. The Minstrels Committee blamed the city of Cape Town for changing the date to Saturday, the 10th of January, which would have coincided with the ANC celebrations. Now, we are joined from Cape Town by the acting Mayoral Committee Member for Tourism, Events and Economic Development, Mr. Brett Heron. A very good morning to you, Mr. Heron. Thank you very much for joining us.
Morning, Eben. Thank you.
Mr. Heron, before we start, I would like you to, look at this clip when we were joined a little bit earlier in the week by the ANC Western Cape chairperson, Mr. Marius Fransman. Let's just have a look at what he had to say about this matter, and then I'd like your reaction.
Historically, it happens on the Tweede Nuwe Jaar for more than 100 years. Yeah. You must remember it comes from the slave history. Secondly, 3-4 years ago, Helen Zille, when she was the Premier, she started to say they can't walk into the Boer Cup, meaning the first attack on the culture. The second attack on the culture is to change it from the Tweede Nuwe Jaar a year ago to try and push it out. This year, we saw initially Tweede Nuwe Jaar, then the 3rd of January on the Saturday. The minstrel agreed with that. However, when there was a important religious evening for the Muslims, there was an arrangement to do it early enough. Then at 3 days before the time, they were requested to do it on the 5th. When the 5th happened, which is a normal working day, the city didn't make the proper logistical support arrangements for the minstrels. Now Patricia de Lille runs around and she says she's accusing the ANC of lying, she's accusing the minstrels of lying. My advice to her is just reflect internally, why is it so difficult for the city to make sure that they give all professional support to this working class community, in the coloured community, to make that this is the best event that we can find every year in Cape Town. And I think what we are seeing is an onslaught. We are saying to the minstrels also, get your act together, make sure that your management structure is in place, and ensure that you are able to outmaneuver these onslaughts. Finally, on the point is on Saturday, whether the minstrels going to walk or not, we are saying the ANC will not stand in the way of the minstrels community to make sure that their heritage are protected and advanced. We are calling on Patricia de Lille to, in fact, to be mature enough. I know Patricia's heart is right, but I do know a party is having a different agenda, and we are calling on her to realize this one's Mensa. It's our people. It's ordinary community. It's working class people. And let's go and celebrate the minstrels community events as well.
Now, Mr. Heron, you've heard that extended little clip of the ANC's provincial leader in the Western Cape. He calls it an onslaught on the culture and heritage of the people of the Western Cape. How do you view this and how do you react to this?
Well, I think Mr. Fransman has got it completely wrong. Certainly there's no onslaught. The city and the province are firm, loyal and consistent supporters of the minstrel event and have been for many, many, many years. I think it's demonstrated by all of the efforts we put in place to make sure the event is successful. I mean, this year between the city and the province, we have allocated nearly 6 million rand to support the event. And I think we must go back to last year. If you recall the headlines last year, the minstrels were complaining that the city had appointed an events organizer to arrange the event. They indicated that they felt that they could arrange the event. This was their event. And so early in 2014, when we reconvened to plan this year's event, the first thing they put on the table was that they wanted to be the event organizer and that the city should just be a financial and logistics supporter. So the agreement with the minstrels is that they would arrange the event, they would arrange the transport, and the city gave them 2 million rand in sponsorship funding. The provincial government gave them about 2.5 million rand in funding, and the city also undertook to provide services to the value of about 1.6 million rand. So the city has committed financially and logistically to support this event, and really we responded to their request to allow them to arrange their own event. The shifting of the date, the date is traditionally is the 2nd of January. The 2nd of January fell on a Friday, which is a Muslim day of prayer. The Muslim Judicial Council asked both us, the city, and the minstrels to move the date. It was moved to the 3rd initially, or considered for the 3rd, but the 3rd was also a religious day for the Muslim community, and all the parties agreed that the 5th of January would be the best date to host this event.
I want to talk about Tweede Nuwe Jaar. It is a day that's formed part of the fabric of the local community for hundreds of years, really, in the Western Cape. Why did the city then decide to move from this day in the first instance? I think the first time was last year, if I stand to be corrected.
Look, the city didn't decide to move the date. As I indicated, there was a request from the Muslim Judicial Council that we move the date because it fell on a Friday, and a Friday is a holy day of prayer for the Muslim community. Many of the members of the troops are Muslim, and so it was a request. It wasn't the city's decision to move that date. It was a request. The request was put to both the city and the Minstrels Committee, and it was agreed amongst the three parties, including the Muslim Judicial Council, that the date would be moved out of respect for the Muslim faith.
What do you then say to criticism from the ANC that the event was moved around this week to undermine their birthday celebrations in Cape Town?
Well, it's utter nonsense. The event was scheduled for Monday, the 5th of January. On the 30th of December, the city met with the Minstrels Committee. Everything was on track for the 5th of January. In fact, the minstrels indicated that they had managed to procure 80 buses from private bus operators, but that there were additional costs involved in doing so, and they asked for additional funding from the city. The city agreed to provide extra funding to cover the costs of the additional cost of the buses. And then we learnt on Sunday, the day before the event, that the Minstrels Committee had decided to cancel it for the 5th of January. I mean, the city was not involved in that cancellation. And the prospect of hosting this event or having this event on the 10th was first mentioned by the minstrels. It was not the city who suggested the 10th of January, which coincides with the ANC's 103rd birthday. And certainly the city probably wouldn't have supported the 10th of January because logistically it would have been very difficult for the city to host two major events on the same day.
Are you at odds at the moment with the organising committee around finances and financing of this event?
Well, we're not at odds at all about the financing. We are obviously disappointed that they cancelled this event, that they gave us assurances throughout the last few weeks and as recently as the 30th of December that they were ready to roll on the 5th of January. The event must take place and will take place later this month. And the unpacking of the finances and how the money's been spent is something that is bound to happen after the event, and the committee is contractually obliged to be transparent about their finances.
Finally, Mr. Heron, how do you, as the city, deal with the unhappiness amongst the local citizens in and around the Western Cape who feel, in a way, their heritage, traditions and culture has been undermined during this whole political process?
Well, I think the Minstrels Committee must take responsibility for failing to arrange the event. As I indicated, they undertook to arrange it. They requested that the city step out and allow them to arrange the event as it is their event. So they certainly must take responsibility. But you will know that the Mayor has already apologized to the residents of Cape Town and our visitors who love this event for the event's failure to take place on Monday.
Thank you very much for joining us today. That is Mr. Brett Heron, who is the acting mayoral committee member for tourism, events and economic development in the city of Cape Town.